Alright guys, so today let's talk about vermetid snails. Welcome back to the channel guys, this is Paul, and today we're going to take a closer look at vermetid snails and what approach we can utilize to try to get rid of them. Now in my case, I've tried all kinds of method and it still hasn't worked for me. It's probably because the vermetid snail has gotten way out of control. They produce these nasty web that cast out over the corals, so that way they can capture the food that's floating around and then they pull it back into their shell, and that's how they grow. When they are smaller, it's easier to maintain the population and try to keep them at bay. But once they get out of control, they will start spreading everywhere and the tubes will get bigger and bigger, and they will start consuming more and more calcium and alkalinity to build up their shell. What you want to do is avoid that stage and try to control them when they are smaller. Ultimately, if you could just keep them out of your tank, that's the best thing you can do. Now with my tank, I kind of given up already. So I've tried a few things over the years and it seems like nothing has worked for me. If you found a solution to this problem, please share with me down in the comment section below. I am more than happy to try anything at this point. Now, I do want to say I have thought about nuking the tank and just starting fresh, starting all over again with clean substrate, clean rocks, new fishes. But I have invested a lot in this tank setup, and I just want to keep everything the way it is and see if the corals will still thrive with the vermetid snails. So let me just run down through all the stuff I've tried, and you let me know if you had any success with the things I'm talking about here today. The first thing I've tried was just your typical glue, and this is the glue that I'm using here. And what I do with this glue is I fill their opening and I pretty much just glue it shut, and it works well when there's not that many. The only problem is when you have thousands of them, it's near impossible to try to get to all of them. The next thing that I use are these little picks here. There's different angles. This is what I use to kind of crack the shell and get all the way down to the base of the snail. And when I do that, it exposes them. If I could get them out, I get them out. If I can't, I expose them so that way other creatures can get to them and eat them. I tried bone cutters, going down to the base. If I'm lucky, I can actually just twist it off, the whole base and the whole snail, and toss it out that way. I've tried this here, my laser. It's a 5-watt laser beam. Works really well with Aptasia, but it does not work, unfortunately, with the vermetid snails. So this guy is really unique. Laser works really well, just not with vermetid snails. I even have gone as far as ordering 100 snails from Reef cleaners, and I have the link to their site down in the description below. They have the best deal around. The only thing that is costly is the shipping, because they have to ship it to you fast. So if you're going to go this route, I recommend ordering it when the temperature outside is in the 60s to 70, so the snails come to you with a higher success rate. I had ordered it once, 100 snails, and although over the course of time the snails started dying one by one, so I think now I'm actually down to maybe like 20 to 30 at the very most. But they do help with controlling, but only if you crack the shell open. So if I go through with one of these guys here and I start cracking all the shells all the way down to the base, then the next day I'll see that all the bumblebee snails are at the base trying to eat the vermetid snails. So that method does work, again, only if you don't have a lot of vermetid snails. The other thing that I have tried is Aptasia X. And I know this is for Aptasia, but I've tried it with some success. I would say about 60 to 70% success. And I just inject this liquid into the opening of the Vermetid snail. But I do that with the pumps off. I inject the liquid into the openings of all the snails and I let it sit there for a few minutes before turning the pump back on. And about 70% of the times, the Vermetid snails do die, but I did notice that on some of them, they didn't die. So it's not 100%, but it does work if you're desperate. Ultimately, guys, the best thing to do is to quarantine, check your corals when they come in, quarantine, take off the frag plugs, check the corals, make sure they're not on the corals themselves where the dead tissues are at. Sometimes they could be there, in the early stages, very small, and you just don't notice that until it's in your tank. QT, as always, use a magnifying glass to zoom in to look at the corals. Make sure that these guys are not on the corals hitchhiking over to your tank. I have a tuxedo urchin in my tank right now, and I thought that might work, but it doesn't work. They go through the area and they clean it up, but the actual Vermetid snails are still there after the fact. I've tried emerald crabs in the past, but that hasn't worked for me. And I would want to try that again, but this time around, probably with some larger emerald crab, if that's something that the local fish store has. The smaller ones that I had before, they just weren't interested in the larger Vermetid snails. Now, they may have been picking on the smaller ones, but I haven't noticed that. But I saw on the forums, specifically Reef to Reef, that some guys have had luck with the emerald crabs. I've heard that the yellow coral wrasse and the melanaris, along with the copper band, might have some potential in getting rid of these Vermetid snails, but I haven't gotten any concrete results or answers from fellow reefers. I do have a melanera wrasse in my tank, but he doesn't seem like he's interested in them at all. That does lead me to what I currently have today, and that is the puffer, specifically the saddleback puffer. And it was either this one or the blue spotted, and I decided to go with this one because he seemed to be a bit more tamed around corals. When I first purchased him, he was going after the Vermetid snails, the baby ones, and he would bite them and break the shell open. And he did that for a while until he got used to the meaty food or the pellets that I was feeding my fish. And now it seems like he's done with the Vermetid and he's just eating what I'm currently feeding. On top of that, he likes eating the starfish and sometimes the copepods and the worms. So all in all, he is actually a good fish for the tank, but he is not that great for controlling Vermetid. He is still small, so I don't know if when he gets bigger, he'll be able to attack the larger ones, but he has ultimately stopped biting or attacking the smaller ones. Based on what I've read on the websites, it seems as though the blue spotted puffer might be the better option or the way to go. And that is what I am looking to possibly get. But the question I have now is, can I have both puffers in this tank? And I don't know if that is possible because they may go at each other. And if that happens, then unfortunately, I would have to return one back to the pet store. I am still in the phase of doing some research. And if I could find one at the LFS, I may just give that a try to see if the blue spotted would be able to help me get rid of the Vermetid snails or at least control them. So as of today, I still don't have any real way of controlling. I guess the best thing is to just don't overfeed, or if possible, maybe move all your fish to a QT tank and don't feed that tank for a long while. And that's probably one of the best ways to starve them out. But then again, if you have other corals or living organisms that you can't take out, then that just might not be a possible solution for you. But for me, I am open to trying anything right now because the corals that I have in my tank are just considered regular corals. So if the puffer decides to go at the corals, I'm just not too worried about them. What I really want to understand is, will a blue spotted puffer be able to control the Vermetid snails or eliminate them from my fish tank? Again, guys, I hope that is helpful, especially if you're running into the issue that I'm currently facing right now. If you have any success with any other methods, Please share it with the community and drop it down in the comment section below. I personally would like to give that a try as well to see if it'll work in my tank. As always, guys, thank you for stopping by and watching this video to the end, and I will see you in the next one.